Hello, my name is Trevor and I am here at the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village. My role is a senior interpreter, and so today I'll be showing a little bit about what we have here at the museum itself. The Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village is a provincial-run museum. The province of Alberta has run the museum since 1975, and what we have here are several historic homes, businesses, schools, and churches that we've restored to a historic appearance and brought to our museum to tell the story of Ukrainian settlers who came to Alberta starting in the 1890s and up until about the year 1930. Behind me is Havriak House, one of our historic homes. This home has been restored to 1928 and is the home of Mike and Vasilina Havriak and their family. Let's go inside. Coming into the house, we come into the kitchen. The Havriak House is a very modern home. This is the kitchen. This room was used day in and day out for most of the family's activities. Even though it has lots of modern amenities, a modern 1920s cook stove, electricity, and even an indoor water pump, it still has a very traditional Ukrainian layout and used in a very similar way to the traditional homes found elsewhere at our museum. The furniture is pushed up against the wall. The bench is the primary seating, and there's a large open space for the family to go about their activities. Missing from the Havriak House that you would find in a more traditional home is a large bed for the family in this corner here. And that's because this house had many bedrooms in which the family could sleep. The room we're in now is the Velika Chata, the big room of the Havriak House. This room has a similar origin in many traditional Ukrainian homes, including some of the ones we have here at the museum as well, but in a more modern Canadian style of construction. However, the use of the room is still very typical of those more traditional styles. Instead of having many chairs or comfortable couches and chairs to sit on, the family had benches covered with homemade weavings. Again, a large table is pushed against the wall, and this room was only used a few select times of the year. On big church holidays, such as Easter, at weddings, and during the harvest season when they had many people to feed. One of the recognizable symbols of Ukrainian culture for a lot of people is the pisanka. A pisanka is a dyed, decorated egg made before the Easter season in many Ukrainian homes. These eggs are made from raw, whole chicken eggs, and wax is applied to the egg before it's dyed in different colors. As you apply the wax, the color is saved underneath and can be put into further dyes, moving from lightest to darkest. These symbols have many meanings, many of which are lost to history ultimately. But for a lot of Ukrainian families, including the Havriak family, it played an important part in their Easter celebrations. As a visitor, if you come out of the visitor center and across the causeway of Goose Lake, you come to one of our 3 zones on the historic village side of our museum. The first zone you'll come to is the town site zone. This zone depicts a railway town site in east central Alberta in the late 1920s. These town sites were built along the railway lines that were developed across east central Alberta as a way of facilitating both people as well as resources, especially the wheat that was grown in these rural areas. What we have here in the town site zone are several buildings that depict especially the main street of a rural town site, as well as the train station, and behind me here, the grain elevator, which was a dominant feature seen along the Canadian West.
What is a plan? So inclusion or equity or to put everyone together so we don't have to secure the religious places and everyone can go freely and feel secure there.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I think that this is one of the opportunities that we have to be able to address the targeted situations that we see against certain racialized communities and religious communities. So I could understand if there are communities that don't want to implement this in their places of worship or their cemeteries or their community halls. That's up to them to decide. We're not forcing it on anyone. And then we do see this as just one prong in a multi-pronged approach to being able to address some of the crime that's been targeted towards some of our racialized communities. So I know that Minister Yassin has done quite a bit of work and is continue to do quite a bit of work in his ministry. In justice, we do have the hate crimes liaison who is working with our law enforcement agencies to coordinate a response. We have also made the commitment through the speech from the throne to having a special investigator look into some of the targeted crimes against racialized communities. So we will be doing that, having an announcement soon related to that. But we also have the, as well with the, at our law enforcement agencies, the hate crimes coordination units. So there's quite a bit of work for us to do to be able to make sure that we're giving the tools to law enforcement to be able to do their best to look into these situations and keep our community safe.
So we have been working on this issue to combat racism and hate in this province, and we have a kind of comprehensive kind of thinking around this to tackle the issue of hate and racism in this province. As many of you probably know, that we have Alberta Anti-Racism Advisory Council. I work very closely with them. They have given us some recommendations last year, and we are taking up their recommendation and working across various ministries in the government and to implement them in the system. And we have actually, as we speak now, more than half of those recommendations have been either being worked or have been probably near completion now. And we, in view of those recommendations, we are developing an action plan to address the larger issue of racism in this province and how we go about it. So so this thing that you see here that comes from Ministry of Law Ministry here, Justice and Solicitor General. This is a component of that work. But so you got to work across ministries to make sure that every piece is in place to effectively deal with the issue of racism as well as discrimination, whether it is discrimination on the street or it's a systemic discrimination in our system. So we have kind of have a much larger view on this, and in the coming weeks and months, you will have more information with respect to our action plan and other things that are being considered or being worked on right now. So right now, what we're dealing with is a component of, this is funding is in itself. In addition to the funding, Administration Andrew mentioned hate crime coordination unit and community liaison hate crime coordination unit will be able to work with law enforcement agencies across the province to ensure that this thing is dealt with effectively, and also community liaison being appointed to make sure that they work with various communities and places of worship to see what else if to identify any gaps still, and then we can kind of work on this on an ongoing basis as well. So there's a lot more to this file than just this funding.
Nancy and Harjeet. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Harjeet, for giving me an opportunity to talk to you. You have a wonderful pink flowers, balloons, and all things which can make any bride like a queen or a princess and happy. Please tell us a little bit more about your business and how, if someone, when the brides are planning or they're planning their wedding, how they can contact you.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to tell you about our business. So our name, first of all, is Sorted. The name represents that you come to us. We do have connections with local vendors. So if you want us to take care of things, we can do that for you. But majorly what we do is we do create custom backdrops for you. We do balloon works, florals, and all those things. So you can custom create your backdrops. I create the e-designs, and then you approve it, and then we bring that to reality. You can choose your colors, pretty much anything you want, you can build up yourself.
So if someone has any specific theme in mind or color combination, or like how they are wearing or how the bridal suits look like or bride suits, so can you handle that also, or will you be able to give your suggestions and recommendations?
In that cases, we would take a look at the venue. I can take a picture of let's say they want something done at this wall. I'll take a picture of the wall. I'll create an e-design so that they can see what it's going to look like with all the colors. And once they approve the e-design, then we actually go and build stuff for them.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks a lot. We are at the Safari event today. It was a wonderful event, Seema. Before I introduce Seema, I want to tell what the event was. It was about the inclusion, diversity, and acceptance, like how we bring back which has been lost. And also it was wonderful when the speaker spoke about Seema. But before I go further, I would like to introduce Seema. Seema is the owner of Flaunt Interiors and Real Estate. Seema, you have done such a wonderful job of having a conversation about inclusions, diversity. How did it came into your? How did it originated? Because when we talk about, say we are brown, right? Then we always talk about the racism, as Dr. Candy said too. Like we always talk about what we see from outside the community. But we have racism inside the community, from families, how we treat male, female, daughter, son. How did it inspire you to have this conversation, an open conversation?
Well, I've been through my own trauma, my own journey. I have my own story. So I was inclined to help make a change. And you have to stop living from the outside inside. If you do want to make a true change, you have to live from the inside outside. So what the outside thinks doesn't matter. Your own self-image should be strong. So what you feel about you is key. The rest doesn't matter.
It's another question I have, right? Because someone in the panelist, it came out too. लोग क्या कहेंगे? What the people will say if I do this?
लोग ये कहेंगे कि तुम बेवकूफ़ हो, तुम सारी ज़िंदगी हमारे बारे में ही सोचते रहे, अपने बारे में सोचते, right? So ये जो line है ना, लोग क्या कहेंगे, has ruined a lot of lives. That needs to change. भाड़ में जाएं लोग.
I agree with जब भाड़ में जाए लोग, कहना कितना आसान है, right? Like जैसे हमारे parents हैं, like जैसे मैं भी था, right? Like when I grew up, right? And I came to Canada, we were the first people, like me came, my wife came, and the kids came, and then people will start talking, right? People will start talking like, you are leaving your parents behind. I said, but yes, I'm not leaving behind, I'm bringing them here too. But it's a concept log kya kahenge, and like the peer pressure or the community pressure is not easy to handle. You need a guts. I don't want to use the other word, like you need a guts, you need a courage. So how do you, because you have lived your life, you have gone through as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, you have lived that, you have passed that stage, if I may say.
Yes.
What message you will like to give to the young generation? I don't want to segregate a male daughter or son, because even I, being a brown father, like how I, treat the kids. And I give you an example. When she wanted to go for graduation, right? She wanted to have a gown, but finding a gown which shoulder cover, it was a challenge. But I should not say ego, but my back in mind.
Your paradigm. Yeah, your belief system.
Belief system. I don't want to say it's good or bad, but how to deal with it.
Yeah.
For the parents, as well, because I met your dad too, right?
Yes.
So think about dad, think about you, and think about the children. So you are basically living 3 lives, because you have to keep the expectation of the dad, you, and then you have to be a good mother or role model too. So how you balance all these 3 things with keeping inclusion and diversity in mind?
The only true way to balance it is to align yourself with your higher conscious. Because until you don't fill your cup, you can't fill anybody else's cup. So either, even if it's your father or your children, if you truly want to learn to balance, you need to balance you. Until you're not aligned, you're not going to be able to help either, because you're going to be such a mess. You'll be all over the place, right? So you need to have that. And for that, you really need to work on personal development. So until you don't know and you don't connect with who you are, you will not be able to correct anybody else. So if it's your father, you feel like they're in the wrong or they should change, but they can't change because they have a belief system. Sometimes you need to unlearn the beliefs that you've learned. And I know that's very difficult, but that's all a part of yourself, like your personal development.
Seema, my last question to you is, because this topic we can talk about forever, right?
Absolutely.
There's no end to it. But what message would you like to give to the parents as a daughter, and to the kids or the young generation as a mother, like how to
Okay.
You can't say,
No, so my message to the parent generation is learn to accept.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, but life isn't easy. I mean, there's challenges everywhere, but the only thing that you can tell your parents or teach them is to accept, because if you're not in acceptance, you're living in misery. So like Guru Nanak Ji says, it's all hukum. So if you're going to go against the hukum, you're going to be miserable. If you're going to go with the hukum, like one of the panelists said, children have their own destiny. Candy actually said, children have their own destiny. They are going to go through what they need to go through, whether that's my parents' generation and me, or whether that's my children and their generation. You have to go through what you need to go through to grow. You have to be uncomfortable to grow. There's no growth in comfort. So my message to the parents would be acceptance, and to the children would be learn to say no. Set your boundaries and just learn to say no. I wish I had an opportunity to say no. I would have made a lot of different decisions in my life had I had the courage to say no.
But then would you like to say to the young generation, it's good to be rebellion or say no, but do know what you're doing?
No, don't rebel. Just set your boundaries. Know your boundaries. That's it.